Brody, it's a different Rabbi Brody, um, brought up in terms of the halachas on Pesach. Do you remember he said there's a prohibition of eating matzah on Erev Pesach?
Yeah.
What we mean is not the night of the Seder, but the night before. And that you shouldn't be able to eat that. You should rather eat challah on your porch, outside and everything after you clean for chametz. And you shouldn't bring that inside because this year, obviously, Pesach falls just after Shabbos. So there is a problem. And one of the problems I've discussed is it's a nice idea that you don't want to eat matzah just before the Chag because you want the Chag to be extra special. But the point of it is to be able to have chametz in your house is a much more serious thing. So he does address this issue. How did he suggest this issue? He says that we have mentioned that in order to retain the uniqueness of the matzah that will be eaten on Seder night, Chazal prohibited eating matzah on Erev Pesach. In truth, many poskim rule that this is only forbidden from daybreak, known as alos hashachar, and so one could actually eat matzah for the Friday night meal. That said, many have the custom not eating matzah already from Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and others even stop eating it earlier from 30 days before Pesach. So what I was going to say to you guys is I would be very, very careful, for the sake of just making it extra special to the extent that you're actually breaking a prohibition as far as that's concerned. Yeah,
because you're supposed to have the appetite, the bechipazon for the matzah. That's the word in Hebrew.
No, I absolutely agree with you, but it's far more serious as kares. And consuming chametz and having it in your possession is a far more serious offense.
So that's why egg matzah is a good solution for Friday night for Shabbos. And because it's kosher Pesach, it's not for suitable for Seder, but it's not chametz.
So what I'm saying is even on Friday night you can have matzah. The prohibition is only from Saturday.
Yeah.
According to Alos Hashachar, from the daybreak. So Friday night I do that, and Saturday I do egg matzah on the porch. Yeah.
Looks like Arthur's eating a piece of matzah there.
Gavin, why is the screen blurry?
I don't know. Everything seems a bit whack. I look blurred as well, though.
No, that's better. That's better, yeah.
That's better. All right, so Kevin, I want you to teach us.
And if I look up, I don't know what's going on with that.
I don't know, that's okay. Kev, I want you to teach us, and then we're going to do a new quick link for the...
Oh, then I've got to be at 7:30. I've got someone. Okay, I've got to be at it at 7:30. Yeah?
7:30. Call it to 8, so you've already missed that deadline.
Right. Okay. Kiddush.
Keep it short then, Kev, because if we want to finish by 40, if you want to finish by 7:30, then are you teaching? Then
8:30. Yeah.
Yeah.
8:30.
So keep it to a minute then, because you've got how many minutes? You've got a half an hour left.
Okay, Kiddush. Okay, just 1 point, 2 points. Sabbath is sanctified by Kiddush, which is recited over a cup of wine in the evening and again in the morning. 2 covered loaves are laid on the table prior to Kiddush. And then just one other thing. Person who's Vayivachulu is Shabbat Beit HaShemayim on Shabbos Eve is regarded as a partner with Hashem in the creation. And this is in Shabbos 119b. By reciting Kiddush, one is testifying to Hashem's creation of the universe and demonstrating acceptance of his authority. Okay. I forgot that actually. Gee.
2 major concepts. We're talking about here, Brisa explained very, very clearly about, this is a discussion about public domain and private domain and the amount of liability in both cases. Okay? That's all we're trying to explain. And what we're going through here is an explanation of firstly, I think before we get started, there's a carpenter. Okay, there's a carpenter, and somebody's entering the carpenter shop. So let me give it to you guys. What are the 2 different scenarios here? What are the 2? Yeah,
Okay,
try
go
it.
ahead.
Just try it.
Or Gavin wants to. Should I try? You want to go first?
No, you try.
The two scenarios, I think. Okay, so Damon, I may be wrong. As Gabe, we haven't said we try our best, but whatever level we are. Okay, so two scenarios are he a member of the public is allowed to enter his workshop, and if he was chopping wood or making something and the blade fell off the axe or these like bandsaw or whatever and killed the oak, then he's still liable because the guy must still be careful. Then the second concept is if the guy specifically in his policy doesn't allow people to come in, and a member of the public still came in and also got killed by a saw that came loose or a blade, he's still liable because he should still be careful. I don't know if that's
okay. So you got it kind of there. You have got it kind of there. Fair enough. Can you put it in one or two simple sentences? What Kevin is trying to say, Gavin or Arthur or Kevin? One or two simple sentences, because I know Kevin's got the concept. Just put it over simply. There's just two sentences. What are the two different places?
So the thing is, it's whether the guy who came into your workshop, firstly, were you aware of him? Number one, did he have permission? And number two, did he have permission to come in? So if he had permission to come in, then you've got a serious problem, because if you killed him, then that's a major ordeal. If you cause damage to him, so then you're obviously liable. If you weren't aware of him being there, that's different. Then it's kind of, it's the other example that we brought up. If a guy's in a communal domain, where he's in the forest, and his ex didn't put on his ex property, he wasn't expecting anyone to be there, so he didn't know if check it, but somebody walked through and he took the guy out. So there, in that particular case, that guy can flee to the city of refuge because it's an unintentional. It's negligence. It is negligence. So he has to flee to the city of refuge. And then there was another example which Kevin actually got a nice gave us a nice response yesterday. With the lashes, and with the lashes.
Okay, we're going ahead of ourselves a little bit.
I'm kind of giving a summary of yesterday.
No, we haven't got there yet. So let's just build step upon step. I think that's the easiest thing in the Gemara. So let's build.
All right. So I think the primary things is really then just he had permission, and
I think you're right, Gavin.
I think those are the two.
You said it well. I think Gavin said it well. Yeah.
You both understood it. Arthur and Akiva, do you have anything to add with regards to the first building block only?
I was just trying to think about it all.
That's okay.
Okay, the first building block, James, the first building block was you're a carpenter, a guy walks into your workshop, he doesn't have permission. Okay. Therefore, and something happens, you obviously got to be aware, because you're obviously, whether you're asleep or not, whatever, you're still responsible. But isn't the difference between the city of refuge and the other one not the city of refuge?
Okay, we're getting there. Okay, so
let me add to the city. Let me add something, because I left something out after this. It kind of came to me.
No, just hang on, Gav. We're not getting there yet. We will. But I just want to clarify something that Arthur said, if it's okay with you guys, is I want you to distinguish. Gavin said two things that are quite insightful here. Let's separate the two issues. The issue is clearly on the surface level. A client or a customer enters a carpenter's shop. In the one case, he has permission. In the other case, he doesn't have permission. That's your clear-cut case. There is a discussion with Rashi when there's no permission. Is the carpenter still aware that the customer has entered his shop, even though the customer had no explicit permission? And does that awareness create some sort of culpability, irrespective of whether permission was granted or not? So that's one of the concepts that we're grappling with. Okay. Yeah, Kev?
Maybe if the guy doesn't have permission, he should lock his workshop. Maybe that'll prevent him being negligent. He doesn't want anyone coming in. He should lock the door.
No,
So no one can come in.
No, for one particular reason is that it is during business hours, but if a guy's got a lone shop, he can't be closed during the day. We're talking about an accident that could
Okay.
a person
Business
in
hours.
man business during business hours. So what happens is say he's a carpenter, he fixes something. Somebody brings a piece of DIY furniture that they want him to fix, and he takes an order and gets paid and then starts to work in the workshop. So he's a one-man show. Maybe he's got an apprentice, maybe he doesn't. And this sort of accident can happen all the time. So it's a practical sort of incident. In terms of remedies for fixing it, after the fact, after you find a dead body, you can always say, we should have done. But in the meantime, we've got one dead body and we've got some questions. So Arthur hit a separate issue to Gavin, at which Arthur's saying the state of awareness has to do with liability, and he's talking about when somebody's aware and they're sleeping or not. So Arthur, I want to make a particular distinction. There's a separate liability for something of a human being being muad, whether you're in a state of unawareness or a state of awareness. That is a different case, slightly here, for one particular reason, is that if a person is not aware that somebody's entered without permission, obviously nobody would hold that person to the same degree of liability as a case when you are totally aware of somebody being there, but you haven't given permission. Let me give you a perfect case. In the case of Deuteronomy chapter 19, verse 5, if memory serves me correctly, that's the verse for the city of exile, okay? And it mentions it in Makot 7b, Makot 8, and Makot 22. And what it discusses is that you walking through a forest, let's not use the word you because I don't want any of you to be murderers or victims. You have Reuven and Shimon. Both of them are in the forest. Now, both people have permission to be there. So, are you necessarily aware that somebody else is there? It's a big forest, not necessarily. But there is an awareness of the concept that there could be somebody there. Okay? And that makes you enough that if you're doing something stupid and dangerous, on the mere basis that somebody else is allowed in that same territory as you, you are negligent, and for that degree of negligence, you will be sent to the city of exile for an unintentional murder, as it says. That is different to somebody sleeping. In Arthur's case, when somebody is unaware, the reason why you are liable in a state of being sleeping is because when you're asleep, you're unaware what you do. But if you see, when you go to somebody for Shabbos, Arth, a very expensive vase and lighting and everything, before you go to bed in somebody's home for Shabbos, you have to put those items away. Because at the time that you're asleep, you can't control your actions. You're unaware at that point. But the reason why you're held liable for articles before you go to sleep is in that state you are aware while awake. And since you are aware while you wake, you have to take the necessary preemptive measures to prevent damage when you're in a state of unawareness. They're two separate issues. I don't know if it's making any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, Damon, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah. So, Art, do you see the distinct difference? So, which means, even if we learned in the previous brisa, we actually did discuss a couple of dafs ago that if somebody puts items of value out when you're staying at them for Shabbos near when you're sleeping, they've created their own stupidity. You're not liable for something like that. Okay. So, but it's a good point. So Gavin hit on two issues. And why? Because he listened. What did he listen about? The fact that I hinted yesterday to Rashi, that Rashi's not 100% happy that it's just a straightforward case of that somebody that doesn't give permission is not liable. Why is Rashi not happy with it? Because that is obvious. The Gemara doesn't state the obvious. Does that make sense? Like, if it can't be just such a case. If you don't get permission, you're not liable. Why would I have to tell you that? If you're not even aware, why would there be any liability to start with? Is that making sense? So Rashi is saying that there's more to it than meets the eye. But on the superficial value, we're going to go through the latter part of this stuff where Rashi's opinion is brought by Rav Papa, who quotes Rava. There are three particular versions of this brisa. But at the moment, we're dealing with three issues within this version of the brisa. Okay, it's going to get complicated. At the moment, it's very simple. And the cat's still here. This cat is a gilgul of some person. I don't know what it is. It's always here for the shiurim. So, okay, it's okay. So the thing of it is, guys, what I want to know from you is Rav Yossi Bar Chanina. The Gemara quotes that he has an opinion on certain things in terms of liability, and then Rava disagrees with the Gemara opinion, and then brings his own opinion on Rav Yossi Bar Chanina, and then argues with it. So what does Rav Yossi Bar Chanina actually say? This is we went through this twice already. I'm giving you names. You don't have to even guess the name. What did the Gemara say very clearly? All right. I think before we start that, can I read the brisa to you? Would that help?
Possible.
All right. Let me just not rely on that sort of memory. Just give me 1 second. All right. Sorry. Let me just move this cat. It's like a snake with fur. It never goes away. The Gemara cites a brisa which discusses the liability of one who inadvertently injures a person who entered his domain. The rabbis taught in a brisa, if one enters the shop of a carpenter without permission, and a chip of wood flies off and strikes him on the face and he dies, the carpenter is not liable to exile. But if the person had entered, okay, with permission, the carpenter is liable. That's the brisa. Okay. So what does the brisa mean when it says in the second case that he is liable? What's the second case? When the carpenter is given permission to the customer to come down to the workshop. What liability for what? Do you guys remember anything? Let's discuss injury. I'm going to give it to you. Let's discuss injury. He's liable for what, guys? In the case where he gave permission.
All four things.
Excellent. Excellent. Who said that?
Gavin.
Gavin, excellent. What four things?
So the one is convalescence. That's the last one. Then
No.
I'm just working backwards. And then the one is the actual injuries themselves.
Good.
And then the difference between what he was earning. I can't remember what the actual word, there's a word for it, but the difference between what let's say he was a doctor, what he would earn in working for a government hospital minus what he would currently earn now.
Good.
I think that would be the calculation. He'd have to pay that. That's like sort of a compensation type of thing.
Good.
And then another one that you'd have to pay is while he's recovering, he'd have to pay him what you'd make now as a shepherd or something.
That's convalescing. Excellent. That's shepherd. That's excellent. Excellent. There's two things you need to add. Guys, I know Gavin. Pain is good. Yes, good.
You've got to pay for pain.
Good.
Humility is an exception. That doesn't come up here. And then, I don't know, what did I leave out?
Medical expenses. It's a good one.
But I said damages for injury, so that is medical.
Okay, fair enough. If you meant that, that's perfect.
I didn't use the word medical, but I did say
no. Damages for injury, you did say that's perfect. Now, why don't you pay for? You said humility. He should have humility, but humiliation. I know what you meant.
Yes, yeah.
So
humiliation,
man. Why don't you pay for humiliation? Does anybody want to guess? Does anybody want a chance? What is it, Kev?
Because he wasn't embarrassed.
Yes, yeah. But why? Why wasn't he embarrassed? It could have been embarrassing.
Because it wasn't in a public place. It was only him and the other guy.
That's not the reason.
Lose the social standing in society.
No, that's not the halachic reason. I've given it twice.
But let me try.
My wife wasn't around, and he's now.
If both parties get involved in a fight, then that would be like humiliation.
Why? Good. Why? Excellent. Why?
It's not one party only that's injured.
You've got the right. You've got the right explanation, but I want the right reason.
But I remember the example with that girl who the wife who grabbed his whatever, and
yes,
that was
she grabbed his private
parts. That was deliberate. That was deliberate. It was
yes, you just answered it. So when the intent is to injure, remember she grabbed his special parts because she wanted him
that's right. Yes, I got it right.
Yes. Now, the carpenter didn't want to injure his clients. You don't want to injure somebody that's going to give you money. It's not a good business practice. Whereas
this is the carpenter from across the road.
Yeah, but on a serious note, there was no intent to injure here. Whereas when somebody is attacking your spouse, unless you really hate your spouse, you're going to get involved and make sure you incapacitate that person with pain to stop them hurting your spouse. So when your intent is to hurt, that is humiliating to the other person. Even Arthur's right that there is a humiliation aspect in public law, in common law, about embarrassing somebody. But this humiliation halakhically is having intent to injure. Why is that humiliating? Because it means that if somebody thinks so lowly of you that they want to hurt you, that is embarrassing. That is actually affects your self-esteem to the core. Doesn't even have.
And what happens if it's self-defense? Let's say there's no husband involved, and this guy attacks her, and she grabs his balls.
According to self-defense, I don't want to get too off the topic, but according to self-defense, that's why they see her as an agent of the court. That's what we learned, because in the defense of her husband, she doesn't have to pay the humiliation, because the intent was to protect her husband as an agent of the court.
Okay, that's right. Thank you.
Okay,
good.
So now we're dealing with this case. So Rav, it's the 4 rules if he injures, fine, where he gave permission. Now, what does the Gemara say? Rav Yossi Bar Chanina says in terms of exile. Akiva, what does he say?
I don't have it in front of me.
No, you're not meant to. Nobody has it. That's called an unfair advantage. Kevin's answering. Kevin, what does he say?
I'm just going to guess. He's only allowed to be released when the Kohen Gadol dies.
No. I'm asking: is he liable to exile or not? If he gave permission for the customer to enter and the carpenter killed him.
No.
Yes, then he can go to exile, I would say.
Gavin says he can. What does...
I say no.
Kevin says no. And what does Arthur say? I can't hear you.
I would say no, because it wasn't premeditated. Even though he's responsible.
The city of refuge for exile is exactly because it's not premeditated. The city of exile...
Okay, then I'd say yes, because then the family might come after him for not doing a good basket or something.
Okay, so we have Kevin that says he's not liable to exile, and Gavin and Arthur saying this mimics the case in Deuteronomy, where this is a classic case of exile because it was for an unintentional murderer. It wasn't premeditated, but it was unintentional. So that's a case of exile. So we have 2 for exile, and Kevin is against exile. What does Akiva say?
I'll say he is in exile.
No, is he eligible for exile or not? What do you mean is? What do you mean?
I would say yes, he is eligible.
Okay, good. So the only one that's right here is Kevin. And
I remember from yesterday that he wasn't eligible, but I thought that was when there wasn't permission. Sorry, so I got a bit mixed up.
No. Listen, guys, the reason the Gemara teaches this is it's actually counterintuitive. So Akiva, Gavin, and Arthur, by intuition, are correct. It's just that Kevin listened better than us all. But the reality is the intuition is correct. Why? Because if you look at it on the surface, what happened? He gave him permission to enter, but he never would have wanted to kill him, especially a customer that could perhaps give you revenue. That's the Ferengi rule. What? So
192.
yeah. But
do not kill a customer.
So the thing of it is, he didn't want to kill him. It was an unintentional murder, and therefore any unintentional murder would be eligible for the city of exile for 2 reasons. What are those 2 reasons, guys?
Well, firstly, it's unintentional.
No.
The other thing is,
yes, that's why he gets exile. But what 2 reasons do we give him exile?
well, I know it's in a, see, I think where this thing, I think we got our guessing wrong, is he's in a private domain. This happened in a private.
I'm not asking that. I'm not asking. What I'm asking is, what 2 reasons do we give an unintentional murderer exile? Yes, Kev?
So he has a chance to get there before he gets killed by the family is allowed to kill him.
Yes, it's a kindness to him. It is a kindness to him to allow him to escape before the family kill him. Okay? And Gavin, I found the answer to what you were looking for yesterday.
About Kapora.
And the second reason is Kapora. There's 2 reasons. Kevin gave one, Gavin gave another, Kapora. So the reason obviously is it allows the person, if they suffer in this world, to mitigate suffering in the next world, because they cannot return to their family or their friends until the Kohen Gadol dies. And maybe that Kohen Gadol will live a long time and they'll have to live the rest of their life in the city of refuge. They've suffered in this world, so they don't have to suffer in the next world. Okay, and it protects them from being killed from their family. So that's the practical reason. Those are the 2 reasons that the Torah gives. Now, one thing, in this case of Rav Yossi Bar Chanina, he says that if a carpenter gave permission to his customer to enter, and he didn't stop with the machinery, and that piece of wood came past and killed him, and clapped him on the head and killed him, he's not eligible for exile. He's not eligible for exile.
Remember, because it's above intentional. It's
okay.
Non-intentional. Sorry, it's above non-intentional. It's worse because he was aware that the guy was there. He gave him permission and everything, compared to the guy in the field where he was completely unaware.
Yes, so that is Rava's explanation on Rav Yosef Bar Chanina. That's Rava's explanation. The Gemara first explanation is that it doesn't fit the prototype case. What's the prototype case? Is there 2 guys that are entering a forest. It could be that they entered it together. It could be that the one was not aware of the other. Either way, both of them have permission to be in the forest. It's nobody's domain. It's as much the murderer's domain as the victim. That's what it says in Makos 7b. Okay? It's exactly what it says. Right? So that case is different to when one person, the murderer, unintentional murderer, it is his domain, and he gives permission for the person to enter his domain. The cases are not compatible, because remember how this Mishnah started out. The Mishnah started out is, hang on, what happens if you created damage and you were in your private domain and you created damage in the public, and then you were in the public, you created in the private, and then you were in your own domain and you created damage to the neighbor. So we talk about domains here. So what the Gemara wants to explain is Rav Yossi Bar Chanina is saying that the cases are not compatible because we're talking about different domain issues. Now, Rava is not happy with the Gemara's explanation of Rav Yossi Bar Chanina. He's saying it doesn't make any sense. Why doesn't it make sense? Why doesn't it make sense according to him?
Damon, I've got to go. Cheers. Sorry, man. I'll catch the end of the recording. Thanks, guys. Have a good night. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, cheers. Enjoy.
Why doesn't it make sense?
What, that he can't get city of refuge?
Yes. Why doesn't it make sense? You see, what I'm saying is Rava doesn't like the Gemara's explanation of Rav Yossi Bar Chanina. the Gemara's explanation of Rav Yossi Bar Chanina is saying that, listen, the case is not like the prototype. Why is it not like the prototype? Akiva, are you at work at the moment or are you at home? Kivs?
What do you at work then?
I lost you a little bit there, Damon.
Are you at work or at home?
No, I'm at home, but my laptop isn't working, so I'm on my phone.
Can we see you for a minute or two? It's just nice to see your lovely face, that's all. Even if it's for a minute. Yeah, that cheers me up. All right, so what I'm...
Okay.
Gav, what I'm saying is this. Rava is not happy. He said the Gemara explanation is weak of Rav Yossi Bar Chanina. He's saying, what are you saying that these cases are not prototypically the same? He's saying as follows, okay? I'll read the wording of the Gemara, but conceptually he's saying, look, in a case on the forest, there could be somebody there could be nobody there, but you know that you're not the only one that has permission to be there, okay? And in a case where you know that there might be somebody there, that's enough negligence that if you do commit an accidental murder by being negligent and something flies off and tongs somebody and kills him dead outright, that you're liable to the city of refuge, then in a case where you definitely know the person's there because you gave them permission to go there, then why aren't you entitled in that particular case to get exiled? In other words, what he's saying is that that's his explanation, and he's saying the reason why you don't get exiled is because Rav Yossi Bar Chanina is saying that exile is too good for you. You do not deserve kapora in this world. You do not deserve that suffering in this world. You're going to get your full suffering in the next world. That's number one. And number two, I looked this up, Gavin. Hashem showed it to me, is that you're not protected from the family trying to kill you.
You're not protected.
You're not.
You've got to create your own set of
protection. Why don't you deserve that protection? Because it's not a case that maybe somebody was there. You gave the permission for the guy to come downstairs and you're carrying on with lethal equipment. Why do you deserve the protection? You are an unintentional murderer bordering on the intentional. Why do you deserve the protection? Why? So that's his explanation on Rav Yossi Bar Chanina. Not that the prototype doesn't match of the quintessential case compared to this case, because the domains are different. That's his explanation of Rav Yossi Bar Chanina. Okay? And what he explained last time is he doesn't agree with Rav Yossi Bar Chanina, because he was saying if you take a case of somebody that gave a lash more than what the court had assessed for this person, because this person has ill health, and that person gave an extra lash and it killed somebody as the court-appointed agent, that he's got blood on his hands because he gave an extra lash, and yet he's allowed to go to the city of exile. So this was his proof that he didn't agree with Rav Yossi Bar Chanina. So the first thing he did is explain what Rav Yossi Bar Chanina is actually saying. And the second thing is he says, I don't agree. Why does he say I don't agree? Because he's saying, listen, if you look at this case of the court-appointed guy that gives the lashes, is that he gave an extra lash. He knew it was bad for the guy's health. The guy died, and even he's entitled to the city of refuge. So in a case where it's an unintentional murderer bordering on intentional, this guy's even allowed the opportunity to get protection from that family looking to kill him and get the ability to suffer in this world so he doesn't suffer in the next world. So he's saying, I don't agree with Rav Yossi Bar Chanina. So first he explained it, and then he said he didn't agree. And then how we left last time is we turned around and said, well, listen, maybe it's not as simple as that, the case, the Gemara says to Rava. Maybe that's the case where he didn't intentionally give another lash. It wasn't bordering on negligence. He just mixed up the count in his head. That's very different to giving permission to somebody to come downstairs and you're carrying on with lethal equipment. Very different. So that's the Gemara's argument to that. 100%. You get what I'm saying? So this is just a bit of a summary of where we're holding now. I want to stop at this point because I don't want to lose too much track with Kevin. But am I making sense to all of you?
Yeah, to me it's clear.
Okay. Has this been helpful at all?
Tremendous.